The offices on the top floor of the Central Intelligence Agency, CIA, based at Langley, Virginia, were quiet. The deputy director of the CIA, David Ridgefield, sat staring out the window at the star-filled sky. The reed-thin, partially bald, 53-year-old former attorney turned his gaze toward the twinkling lights of Washington. He waited patiently for his boss, General Norman Lashar, director of the intelligence agency, to conclude his phone call. Lashar, a ruddy-faced, no-nonsense leader, wrote 2 lines on his scratch pad, tore the page loose, and handed it to his second-to-command. Ridgefield reached over, grasped the piece of paper, then sat back. He could not believe his eyes. Lashar ended his conversation, placed the receiver on its cradle, and turned to his assistant. "I can't believe it either." Ridgefield shook his head. "A renegade faction in Russia has one of our stealth bombers?" "I'm afraid so." The former Marine Corps commandant replied with a look of disgust. "Sorry to call you in at this time of the evening, but we have a major hill to take." "No problem, General. I'm just astounded that anyone in the Soviet Union would even think of capturing a B-2, in light of their reforms." Lashar pushed himself back from his desk. "That makes 2 of us, but there are still hardliners, many of them wearing stars, who are blatantly resisting the military restructuring." "How did whoever—" Ridgefield paused. "How did this happen, sir?" "It's a long story," Lashar answered as he removed his military-framed reading glasses. Everyone in the intelligence agency called Lashar either General or Sir in his presence. When the director was out of earshot, his associates referred to him as Rambo. "I'll tell you about it later, Dave. Right now, we, the CIA, have a formidable task to accomplish." "Find the B-2, Ridgefield stated. Lashar smiled slightly, then reverted to his normal, dour self. "That was Secretary Kirchner on the phone. The White House wants to use covert means to find out if the B-2 is in Cuba." "Cuba?" Ridgefield responded, puzzled. Is the Secretary positive it's in Cuba?" "No, he isn't," the scrappy director answered. "However, all the evidence points to Cuba, and we have our marching orders." "General," Ridgefield began, formulating a suggestion. "Should we use rain dance?" "Absolutely," Lashar replied. "Secretary Kirchner made one thing very clear. The President wants that aircraft back in our hands as expeditiously as possible. The pressure is on the CIA, but we have carte blanche to find the B-2. We're not actually being charged with the responsibility to retrieve the aircraft." Ridgefield paused. "Are we?" "No," Lashar answered, leaning back in his chair. "The White House doesn't want to make any accusations or confront the Soviets or Cubans until we know for certain where the stealth is located. Our job is to find it, and find it fast." Ridgefield looked concerned. "How far down in the agency are we going to reach, General?" "You're looking at us, along with the Director of Covert Operations," Lashar answered, then gathered his messages into a pile. "Secretary Kirchner said to put a lid on it for the time being. Dave, I want you to initiate contact with Rain Dance as soon as possible." "Yes, sir." "We're going to have to use the Vienna loop," Lashar instructed. "The East German operative has been under surveillance since the wall crumbled, and we can't take the risk of exposing her. We'll have to retrieve her soon, but now isn't the time." Ridgefield nodded in agreement. "Also," the director continued, "locate our man with 9 lives." "Will do, General."